Hi and welcome. So today I want to share with you why just avoiding certain trigger foods is not the solution to resolving your emotional eating and what you truly need. So welcome if you're new here. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and emotional eating expert. And I wanted to clear up a few things about foods and emotional eating. Sometimes clients tell me, and this is what a lot of clients do, they avoid certain foods because those might be their trigger foods and those are the foods they go towards. And, I had a client tell me that the advice she was given to help with her emotional eating was to stop eating those foods. And advice like that is worrisome to me because it means that you don't really understand what emotional eating is. It means that you don't understand the depth of it and what is actually creating this for someone. And so I want to share with you what's really going on with food and emotional eating and why simply just avoiding the food is not going to help you. Yes, of course, food plays a role, but it's not the whole picture. And so emotional eating is really, it's a coping mechanism. It's this pattern we develop that helps us cope with the stressors of life. It helps us to feel soothed and it's an addictive pattern. And what I notice with clients is that this pattern usually starts from childhood where we didn't have certain needs met or we were modeled, to emotionally eat, or we were left to figure out how to be with our emotions. And so I experienced this myself when I was going through my emotional eating journey. I thought I needed to control the food. And so it's so much more than just controlling food. It's so much more than just about food. And so I'm going to share with you what is really going on. Food does play a role, but it's not the whole picture. And so the reason that we go towards certain foods when we emotionally eat is because they give us sort of this dopamine rush. They make us sort of feel good momentarily. That's why we're using food. And simply avoiding the food, it's not the food creating this pattern necessarily. It is something deeper. But when we do eat those foods that, make us eat more and more and binge more and more, part of it is we're filling a void inside of us. And part of it is that the processed foods and foods that give us that big dopamine rush, they are actually not nutrient dense. And so they're lacking certain qualities to fully satisfy our hunger on a nutritional level. And so that's why you can probably eat a dozen cupcakes and still be craving more even though your stomach is stuffed. It's lacking, the vitamins and minerals that our body is actually looking for. So there's a discernment between, going towards that food and emotionally eating it, and then it's also not nutrient dense, which makes us eat even more of it. And so this can sometimes happen. Of course, we're triggered into emotional eating and we want to soothe ourselves and we go towards these foods that give us this big dopamine rush, and that kind of takes the edge off. It's a Band-Aid solution. And so simply avoiding those foods, it's not getting at what's going on under the surface. So we can avoid those foods all we want. And here is where a problem comes in. We start developing more and more restrictions. And that's why a lot of emotional eaters have a diet mentality. I mean, a lot of us do, because in our society, it's kind of common. We are very restrictive, but this promotes even more of this restrictive mentality. And so we then restrict ourselves from these foods. And then that also makes us want to eat them even more because we can't have them in our lives moderately. And again, we're not getting to the root of this. So we're adding in, we use those foods to soothe ourselves when we're emotionally triggered. We use those, now we're restricting ourselves from those foods, and that makes us want it even more because we're depriving ourselves, and yet we haven't found the root cause of the emotional eating. And so what's really going on and what we need to do, because cutting off those foods is just a surface level solution. It's not going to last very long. Again, you're relying on your willpower, but we're not getting to the root. And so when I work with clients in the Emotional Eating Evolution program, I work through different phases of resolving your emotional eating, because food plays a role, your body plays a role, and your emotions play a role. And when you simply just cut out something that seems to be the problem and not get into the root, you're sort of still willpowering your way through things throughout time. And that becomes very draining, and you're left without any solution. And so when I work with clients, we work through these 3 phases of the emotional eating evolution program. There's a 4th phase, but for this video, you just need to know the first 3 phases. We work through food, so true nourishment and optimized digestion. We work through body with body acceptance, and we work through emotional wellness. And so the reason we do this is that food is important, and when we're truly nourishing our body and, optimizing the way we're getting in nutrients, and we feel really nourished and satisfied, and we're eating foods that are building the health of our body, we can eliminate a lot of going towards those triggering foods because we're going to feel so nourished. And this also is helpful because our digestion is really important to our mood. So when our mood is off, our digestion's in balance, and the same, it goes vice versa. So when our digestion is off, it imbalances our mood. And as emotional eaters, we go towards food in those moments. So if we just simply cut out those foods, we're still creating stress and mood imbalance and digestive issues, and we will be triggered into emotional eating. This can be a little bit complex. But here, when we work through true nourishment and we optimize digestion, we're eliminating one of those triggers of, digestive issues that can trigger mood imbalance. We're also moving away from restriction. So here is when you cut everything out and you can't have it, you want to overindulge in it. So we're moving into that, and we're also tuning into true versus emotional hunger. And this will help you know if in that moment you're emotionally just going towards those foods, or, you feel deprived. We're sort of eliminating those things. So it's important that we not just cut foods out, because psychologically that really makes us crave it even more because it's depriving. The second area is all about body acceptance. And here we're learning more about our body's needs and rhythms. And this will help with balancing out our moods as well, and just be more understanding of the rhythms and rituals our body needs. So, how much energy we have, how much rest we need, so that this minimizes our mood imbalance as well. When these areas are off, our mood is imbalanced and we're triggered into emotional eating, and that can be us going towards the foods that will, sort of boost us up, again, give us that dopamine rush. And so we need to really look at this area as well as a root cause. And finally, the emotional wellness piece. So once we've sort of worked through the 2 areas I've talked about and sort of physically sort of grounded ourselves, we move into the emotional triggers, because emotional eating is really multifaceted, and it really began as something more emotional, but over time, any imbalance in our mood physiologically can trigger emotional eating as well. And so we want to really look at the emotions under the emotional eating pattern. And so when I work with clients in the program, I work with them privately, and I also give them guided meditation so we can get into the root on a somatic level, and I use additional psychotherapy tools with them. But this is to really get at the root. It is trauma informed, so that we're really clearing out that root, we're clearing out that pattern and putting something in that we want to move forward. And so here we really get into the root of why we're going towards certain foods as we're working with the other areas that might be imbalanced as well. And so you can see that it's not as simple as don't eat those foods. We are not simple. Maybe some of us are, but we are multifaceted, and this issue is multi-layered, and we need a holistic solution in order to have sustainable change. And so this is why I work with clients through these different levels, because a lot of the times we think we know how to eat, we know how to take care of our bodies, we know, how to be with our emotions. And I'm going to say, from my experience working with clients, if you've tried everything, there's another world available to you, because every time clients come into my program, it's very different for them. And it's so different than what's conventionally taught. And this is why we need a new way. We need to move out of this old way that's very external and tune back in and know how to connect in with our food, with our body and our emotions at this deeper level so that we can resolve this issue. And when we do that, we do start feeling at ease in our body around food. We don't have to willpower and force ourselves to not eat certain foods. It's going to be a choice in that moment. We're not going to be in this sort of addictive pull and pattern. So if you have any questions about what I've shared with you today, please let me know. I also want to invite you to check out more about the Emotional Eating Evolution program. If what I've said to you is resonating and it feels like it's the next step for you, you can also book in an emotional eating assessment call. And so there we can find out more about you and what your goals are and how the program can support you. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.